Hey guys, what's up? It's Dan here.
And I'm Deandra.
You're listening to College Declassified.
This podcast is centered around providing you with educational tips to get you prepared for all aspects of college.
That includes Fafsa help, college success tips, test-taking strategies, scholarships, you name it.
We'll be sitting down with experts
to talk about how to help you succeed before and during college. We hope you enjoy listening to College Declassified. Yo, we are back with another episode of Deandra. What are we back with?
We are talking about life after FAFSA.
Life after FAFSA.
Yes.
Welcome to another episode of College Declassified. I am your co-host, Daniel McKenzie, the Director of Media Communications here at the Family Centered Educational Agency, which sponsors our lovely College Declassified podcast. Mm-hmm. As you can hear, we are back again with the head honcho, the decision maker,
guru,
the FAFSA guru, I was gonna say Pied Piper, but
no.
Given current events, we'll choose another nickname.
Right.
But we're here with Dr. McKenzie, and we told Doc, we didn't have to tell him this, but this podcast is his platform to share messages that he wants to get out. So he said, hey, I got another banger. I'm sitting in for episode 4. And so we said, okay,
right,
hit us with it. So Doc wanted to come on and talk to us about life after FAFSA, right? So you filled out your FAFSA and you might be thinking, hey, everything's all good. I can just coast until I hear back from them. Let them take care of it. But Doc is going to tell us why that is not the case, and there are some proactive things that you need to be doing after your FAFSA to guarantee success. So we're excited to get into that. But first, we have to discuss a current event that is blowing up the educational world and really just social media in general. Currently, the Howard University student body is currently protesting their living situation. The students as a whole are not satisfied with their living situation. They've addressed the board and written the board and said, hey, we're unhappy with what's going on. And the board has pretty much said, hey, we hear you and we'll make changes, but without anything concrete, to appease their situation. So they've taken over the Blackburn University Center to protest against the housing conditions and lack of student representation on the school board of trustees. So me personally, I'm with the students, man. I think that's very inhumane to live on a campus where you have to fear mold. And somebody who struggles with their allergies, I would be
asthma.
Yeah, I got all those, so I would be right in Blackburn. But Doc, what do you think about that?
Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me back. It's good to be here. It's always great to have an opportunity to share information with your audience and young people. Well, the situation is really I really feel bad for the students, and I also feel bad for the institution because this is not the kind of message that you want to send out to the public or have get out to the public, regarding your living conditions of students. But higher education. I studied the history of higher education in graduate school, and it has a really interesting history in that the power has the power has always lied with those in administration and faculty, and many institutions have the sense that the students are supposed to respond to them as opposed to the institution responding to the students. But with the influctuation or the arrival of social media and all of these other platforms where messaging can get out immediately, that there's a power shift going on, and a student's voice can really be magnified exponentially and quickly through social media. And so, this was an issue. This is not just germane to, say, Howard University. There are a lot of issues like this that exist at many other campuses, and I assume that many of them are probably shaking right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Thinking that we're next. That students can easily tell others about our shortcomings. But you've got to address those things. You've got to do it quickly. The institution that's not able to respond quickly to situations like this will find themselves in a really big problematic state.
What do you think about the? Because some of these students have been almost exposed to expulsion, and threatened with expulsion because of their protest of the housing conditions at Blackburn, sitting in at Blackburn. That is. What do you think about a student's right to protest?
I think it's something that should not be ignored. Through their protest, they can make you better. I mean, they're telling the institution, we need to make some changes here, and if you make these changes, we'll be a better institution. You'll better serve your client, which are the students. And so, the institution should really be careful and quick about responding to what's going on right now. They really need to address these issues and make sure that these young people are safe. I mean, we're living in a time of viruses and all kinds of other things that are going on that threaten our health. And so we're in a heightened state of regarding health issues and different things like that. So this issue does not serve this institution well. And they would be very smart to address it because, hey, your students are your best marketing tool, to use. They're your best voice for saying how good an institution is. You can put out all kinds of commercials and everything, but if the student's voice is not paralleling that message, then you have a problem, and they need to address it quickly because there are other students, like the students that we serve, that are hearing what's happening.
Absolutely. That was what I was going to say. Yeah.
And so they're making decisions right now as to where they're going to enroll. So this is affecting not only the current student body, but it's also affecting potential students.
Yeah, our outreach specialist, Ricardo Torres, he just came in before the podcast, and he was saying, he talked to some of the students who were really excited before this whole thing blew up to apply to, your Howards and, different schools. But they're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, like you said, with the arrival of social media, I mean, that's really what has elevated. We've always seen protests on college campuses, but now it's different to where it's like, hey, these are my accusations and here's my proof, and so it's like you can't beat proof,
right?
So it's just like there's no
they have evidence.
Yeah, there's no public message. There's no what do we call them? Press release that can make that
can't
go
spin
away.
it.
Yeah, so I think the consensus of the student body is, hey, look, Howard is still the illustrious Howard University. The legacy can never be taken away.
Right.
But hey, we're here now.
Yeah.
Right. So we can focus on the legacy and we honor the legacy of Howard University. Nobody's trying to take away from that. But we're saying, hey, look, even as illustrious and as legendary and you are,
your image can be tainted.
Yeah, and we still need to be, covered and protected here now.
Yeah. Yeah, yesterday's successes are yesterday's successes. Yeah. You need to. What are you doing today?
Right.
Yeah. In the words of Janet Jackson, what have you done for me lately?
What have you done for me lately? No. So definitely going to be looking at that. I think, like you said, great point. Another great point is that this is not germane to Howard. I think a lot of colleges, HBCU and PWI alike,
right.
I can recall at my school, my friends being late to class because the hot water was out. And, you know, so it's like if it's not germane to them. So I think just with everything going on in the education world, we're coming to a crossroads where students are going to say, hey, is this really worth it? Because
they're paying a lot of money.
Yeah.
Students are paying a lot of money to attend these institutions, and it's not a big ask to ask for basic necessities to be met.
Right.
You know, like a clean living environment, especially when you're paying X number of dollars to be in that environment. And so this is one of the reasons why we try to visit colleges and we take students on college tours through the Upward Bound programs and also through the Talent Search programs and now EOC, because we want students to see not only and hear about the institution and tuition and admissions and acceptance, but we want them to see the campus, the condition of the campus, and everything. And so, I mean, this is basic psychology, industrial psychology 101, in that you take care of facility.
Right.
If you can't take care of facility, then you're going to have a problem with your clients and customers and workers. I mean, it's not just the students are not just being impacted by this. The workers are as well.
Yeah.
Right.
So this is a very big issue.
Yeah, especially in light of COVID-19 and everything like that. So, I mean, we have to be, students and staff alike have to be this diligent because it's literally life and death issues. So,
Absolutely.
Shout out to everybody who's trying to improve the conditions, staff, administration, and students alike, and just all over, you know, college world. So, gonna be looking at Howard and everything closely, but I think that kind of goes in today's topic of life after FAFSA. And I'm really glad you decided to come in and sit in with us again and share some information, because a lot of people do feel like once they filled out their FAFSA, they can kind of just go back to senior year and kind of just do their own thing, you know, until they hear from about their FAFSA. So what is life after FAFSA, and kind of just give us an overview of what we should be looking for and looking to do after FAFSA. Oh, sorry. Couple of announcements, just quick reminders. It is still October. The FAFSA is open. You should be filling out your FAFSA. We make this announcement every podcast. The earlier you fill out your FAFSA, the more likely you are to get the best package, the best financial aid package for yourself. Now, we are not saying that if you fill out the FAFSA early, you will get 100% of your need met, because there are so many things that go into that decision. But your chances are better when you fill out your FAFSA early. So you should be doing that. So yes, if you need help, you can. You should be getting professional help with your FAFSA. Free professional help. Nobody should be charging you for helping you with the FAFSA. You can sign up with us here at the Family Centered Educational Agency by going to calendly.com/FACIA, or you can get help through the Department of Education. That number is 1-800-4FED-AID if you need help with your FAFSA. So we do have one upcoming FAFSA pop-up shop that will take place on Saturday, October 30th.
Cool. Yeah, and if organizations would like for us to come out and actually do a financial aid workshop or a FAFSA workshop, churches, community-based organizations, they can call us at 708-210-1771 and request for a workshop or a presentation.
And that can be virtual or in person?
It can be virtual or in person.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So, had to get that out the way before we got into the big business. So, Doc, go ahead and take it away. What should we be doing after we fill out our FAFSA?
Yeah, it's a really big process. Keep in mind, you're trying to obtain thousands of dollars to pay for your education, and you're trying to obtain the best financial aid package that you can receive, award package that you can receive that will pay for most of your college costs. The cost of higher education is extremely high. The FAFSA is only one step in a multiple step process.
Right.
So completing it is just the first step. The second step thing that you want to do is you want to start looking for information that's going to start coming back to you. When you complete your FAFSA application, it goes off to the Central Processing Service, and they process the application. What you put on the application, you don't have, a lot of room to explain your family situation. They ask you, what were your taxes back in, 2020,
right.
And you give them your tax information.
Yeah.
But your parents may now be unemployed, or there may be a family crisis where someone was in an accident. All of these other, things like that occur. So the application doesn't allow you to explain. So you need to position yourself to get ready to really give the financial aid office as much information about your family's situation as possible, so that they can use something that they have, which is called professional judgment. I've talked about that before. Professional judgment says, I see what's on the application. I understand what your family's income was based on the information that you provided on the FAFSA. However, looking at this extra information that you provided for us, I'm going to make a professional decision to say that you are eligible for more aid based on this extra information. And that's why I always say, get help with the application, because a good counselor will be able to look at your FAFSA is going to generate what we call a student aid report, an SAR, a SAR, right? And on that SAR, it will have everything that you that you put on the FAFSA application. But we take that information. Once the student gets the SAR, simultaneously the institution that they listed on the FAFSA application will receive what we call an ISER, an informational student information report. And this report will parallel what's on the SAR. It's at that point that the school now has a record of you possibly coming there, right? And so now we can start communicating with the school your family's situation. So first thing I look at on the SAR is the EFC number, the expected family contribution number. That's normally in the top right-hand corner of the SAR. And I look to see if there are any asterisks or a C beside the EFC number. If there's a C beside the EFC number, that tells me as a counselor or financial aid expert that there needs to be corrections made on the SAR. Something was put down, maybe it was conflicting information, or something was missing, and we need to correct it. If there's an asterisk beside the EFC, that lets me know that the student has been selected for a process called verification. And with verification, a student needs to, again, the financial aid office at the institution where the student is going to be attending needs to verify everything that was on the SAR, on the FAFSA application. So you may have to send in extra information. For example, there may be a conflict in the family size. Maybe you said there were 5 people in your household, but when they looked at your tax return, there were only 2 exemptions claimed. So that's conflicting information. If there are 5 people in the household, there probably should be 5 exemptions. So the financial aid office is going to want you to explain that. So we need to explain that Dr. McKenzie is living in the attic, mm-hmm. And we're providing more than 50% of support for him. Mm-hmm. He's a part of our household. Anybody that you provide more than 50% of support for during this year and beyond can be claimed as a member of your household. Right. And the larger the household size, the greater your eligibility for financial aid.
So verification is just basically a college asking for clarity.
Yes, it's asking you to verify that this information is true, mm-hmm. that you put down on the FAFSA application. And some colleges and universities have a 100% verification system. Mm-hmm. So when I'm helping students with FAFSAs, I'm looking at the schools that they're putting down. And some of these schools I know, like Northern Illinois University, has a 100% verification.
Which means they're going to verify you.
They're going to verify your information no matter what. Mm-hmm. So you need to be ready. If you're selected for verification, and you're a dependent student, there is a dependent student verification worksheet that you have to complete and send in to that institution. And so, again, that's outside of the FAFSA application, right? And so we need to look at everything that's coming back, all the correspondence. If you're in Talent Search or you're in Upward Bound and you're getting information, you're a senior, you're getting ready to go to college, and you're getting information back from the Department of Education regarding your FAFSA application, you need to share everything with your counselor so that they can then advise you as to next steps.
Absolutely.
What's happened in the past is that certain students have been eligible for certain awards, but there was correspondence coming back from the school. There was correspondence coming back from the Department of Education, and the student didn't respond to it. I'm a senior. I'm just worried about graduation. I'm worried about prom. I'm, all these things. I want to get my prom dress. I want to get my tuxedo, all this stuff. And you're not concerned about the money. You have to focus on the money. The reason why I say that is that there are so many students that don't get enough financial aid to cover their cost. So let's talk money for a minute. Just do some very simple math. If you're going to attend the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana, the total cost of attending could be around $40,000 to $45,000, depending on your major. Some STEM majors and other majors, those students have to pay a little bit more because of lab costs and other things like that. So $45,000, right? The maximum you're going to get on a FAFSA is probably $6,000, $65,000, something like that, $6,500. That's if you're eligible for the maximum amount of aid.
Your EFC is at zero.
All zeros. Mm-hmm. Then if you add the MAP award to that, that's another $4,000. Right. You add maybe the Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, the FSEOG. That's probably another $4,000. So we got $14,000 now, right? Mm-hmm. Roughly. College work study, maybe another $2,500. So you're at $16,500. Trying to think of anything else. Maybe student loans, a guaranteed student loan. Right. Add another $3,000. You're at $19,500. It costs $40,000 to $45,000. What have I just said? If you have a maximum eligibility for the maximum amount of aid,
still need more money.
You need about $20,000 to $25,000 more dollars. So, and again, I think the misconception that a lot of students have is if I fill out this FAFSA, I'm going to be eligible for financial aid and it's going to pay for everything. It's not.
It used to be like that.
Yeah, it used to be when I went to school back in the Stone Ages. Yeah, a FAFSA could pay just a Pell Grant by itself would pay probably 80% of your cost of attending.
Wow.
One grant pay 80% of your cost of attending. Now it doesn't even pay. Right. It won't pay probably less than a fourth of what it costs to attend these institutions, and that's for a 4-year public institution
with the lowest EFC score possible.
With the lowest EFC score possible, meaning the highest eligibility for financial aid. And so we've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Because after we satisfy the institution's verification process, we still have to look for scholarships. We still have to look for institutional aid. We have to talk about where you're going. You put there are 10 schools you can put down on the FAFSA, but you can only attend one, right? So we've got to decide where you're going to go, and then we have to start working that relationship with that institution because institutions have what we call institutional aid, right? The president has a scholarship. The board of trustees probably have a scholarship. Right. They have other foundational scholarships.
Majors,
departments, depending on your major, if you're business or engineering, you have to go to the College of Engineering, see what they have to offer. Right. There's a lot. And so we really need, higher education is a multi-billion-dollar business. And if you're going to go into that business and start attending there to learn something, you're going to need to make sure that you get as much aid as possible. And this is why 50% to 60% of those who attend come back home and don't graduate. Right. And so we want to avoid that. Yeah. We want to make sure that you get what you need and the support you need to attend these institutions.
Yeah. And just to kind of rewind, an important thing you said is that after you filled out the FAFSA, you need to be looking for these things. When these things come in the mail, right, it's important to respond to them as soon as possible. And see, I don't hate to cut you off. No, you're good.
A lot of students are not used to doing that.
Yeah.
How many students actually check their mail every day? They don't. They leave that up to their parents, right? Mm-hmm. But this is a process that's impacting you, not so much your parents indirectly, but you have to start checking the mail. Right. You have to start being responsible. When you get to school, when you get to college, and you're going to get these scholarships and institutional aid packages, they don't want your mother or father telling them who you are.
Right.
They want you to tell them.
Direct communication.
And so you have to take ownership of this process. We try to teach that in our workshops that we do with students. We don't just, talk about FAFSA. FAFSA is half the battle. When you really look at it, the money that you get is half the battle. Now, most of the students that we're talking about do not have a maximum need for financial aid. So they're going to need a lot more than just $20,000. Okay. And they're going to need it for more than just 1 year.
Right.
The average student, if you spend about $30,000 on your cost of attending out of pocket every year, 3 times 4 is 12. That's $120,000 that you'll need, to help pay for your college education. And that's at a 4-year public institution. Some of these other institutions are even higher.
And that's kind of what That's what went into my question that I wanted to ask you is, for high school seniors who have completed their FAFSA, when should they start expecting their student aid report that'll have that comprehensive data?
1 to 2 weeks. It comes back pretty fast. Actually, they should start looking when they press submit on the FAFSA application. They get a printout of an estimated printout of what that EFC is probably going to be. They should take that printout and give it to their talent search counselor, give it to their upward bound counselor, and let them start counseling you on next steps immediately. And what we try to do, a student can fill out the FAFSA. There are a lot of students who filled out the FAFSA at midnight, October 1. Right? Yeah. But if they're not vigilant in watching what's happening, even though they were the first to fill it out, they will be the last to be awarded aid if they're not vigilant. Right? Because there's so many other things that need to happen, need to take place. And so you really need to be watching.
And we've come up on that where a student is like, yeah, I filled out the FAFSA, I'm good. Right. And our counselors will be like, well, where's your student aid report?
They're like, what's that?
What's that? Like,
I thought I was
good. Yeah.
Right.
So we've seen that so much, and so it's like, I'm glad you said that you have to be an active participant in this process. It's really almost like, your rite of passage, almost like prior to this experience, there wasn't too much that you had to do. By your parents could check your mail, your parents could pay for different things. Well, now it's just like, hey, this is your future. Yeah. And these are things that you have to do. Right. Mom and dad can't do it.
Even if you're receiving a full ride scholarship.
Right.
You still need to go through this process, because those many scholarships are contingent upon going through this FAFSA process, completing the verification process if necessary, answering. I mean, you got FAFSA, you have verification, you have financial aid award letters, you have letters coming from the institution. All of these things need to be addressed as you're going through this process. And so, it's not, some students, even those who, like I said, are receiving full ride scholarships, they need to be vigilant as well, because there are contingencies within those scholarship offers that they need to be aware of.
Right. We were kind of looking at this whole life after FAFSA thing too, and one thing that ed.gov brought up, and they have their own tips, and we'll put that link in the description on what they feel like you should be doing. And you covered a lot of it. Obviously, find your expected family contribution on your student aid report. Double check with the schools you listed on your FAFSA. But there was one that was really caught my attention, and it's to keep prospective schools aware of any major changes to your family's financial situation. Can you go more in depth into how you can do that? Say, I want to go to the U of I, or I want to go to Illinois State. How do I keep my school that I know I want to go to up to date in what's going on with my family situation?
One of the first things I would do is find out who's the director of the financial aid office at the institution you're trying to attend.
That's a gem.
Get to know their name and make sure that they get to know your name. Not your social security number, not your student ID, but your name. This is about relationships. And young people today, many young people today don't build lasting relationships, especially with old folks like me. they just don't. I mean, we don't have anything in common. But old folks like me who work at that institution have access to information. They also have access to scholarships, and they could be really helpful to you if you would establish that relationship. And so, that's really crucial. And once they know your name, then and you know their name, you start communicating with them. You start telling your story. It's just like video production. You tell stories in videos, right? They need to know your story. Who's your mother? Who's your father? Are you from a single parent home, right? Your mom is recently divorced. It's just the two of you, or it's just the five of you, and she's the sole breadwinner.
Right.
I've actually helped students to put together, in some cases, spreadsheets that say, here's my income, right? But then here is my bill. Here's my income, and here are the number of bills that I have on a monthly basis. And we explain what the family's financial situation is like.
Because sometimes it is deeper than what's on paper.
It's much deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a static. Life is not static.
Right.
Life is constantly moving, and it's constantly changing. You're employed today. You may be unemployed tomorrow.
Right after you fill that FAFSA.
Right after you filled out the FAFSA. So, and again, I've had students whose parents have been in car accidents, and they broke that. One student broke their neck, broke their back, all kinds of things like that. And we were able to explain those. It's called special conditions, right? Students have special conditions or special circumstances that come up. And so you need someone to help you to write these letters explaining that. One of the things that a professional will do who's working with you, not only will they write the letter and explain what the family situation is, but they will help you to collect evidence. Everybody needs to write that word down. Evidence. In order for that financial aid director and counselor to use their professional judgment to change your eligibility status, your EFC, your expected family contribution, they're going to need to see and collect and file evidence that justifies their decision. So if I'm explaining the family situation, I may provide check stubs, I may provide doctor statements, I may provide letters from the insurance company saying we've been canceled, we're not paying for this, and you got to pay for it out of pocket.
Right.
All of the situations that exist with the family. And I give them that information.
And this is why it's so important to have professional help with your FAFSA.
Your beautician won't know this.
She won't. She won't. And we stress that so much. I'm looking into the camera for this because, it's so important. Even if it's just you guys in the house, this can be an overwhelming process.
Very much so.
And you'll miss things.
Yeah.
And this is like a gem. Like I guarantee you, people didn't really know that you could be in direct communication with the college about your financial situation.
Short story. I dated a young lady. I worked in financial aid. I worked right at the front desk. And so anybody who came in, I saw them before they went to see a counselor or the director. And this young lady that I was dating came in one day. I thought she was coming to see me. So I'm like, hey, she's like, I'm not here for you. I'm here to see your boss.
Yeah.
I said, what do you want to see my boss for? You're not eligible for financial aid. I already know I helped you with your FAFSA. I know what your situation is like. She's like, no, I need to see your boss. She understood that my boss had more power than I had, right? More decision-making power than I had. And she would go in the back. They would have a conversation, and she would explain her family situation. She also knew that my boss liked to eat, and she was a nutrition major, so she'd make these nutritious meals, and she'd come in the back, she'd share them with my boss, and they'd be back there giggling, laughing. By the end of the semester, this young lady's financial aid package was reworked, and she was eligible for thousands of dollars in financial aid. Why? Because she developed a relationship with the director of financial aid. She developed a relationship with someone within that financial aid office, and she made them know her name versus just her social security number. And she explained her family situation, provided them with evidence, and they helped her.
How do you think that advice could turn over and benefit middle class students and families?
Well, it's really important for middle class families, because right off the top, if you're middle class, you're probably not going to be eligible for a Pell Grant. And
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but what would you say is middle class, right?
Well, there's no specific
definition,
number, that I could give you, because you could make $100,000, but have a business loss. If you owned a business, you could have a business loss of $100,000. Right. So you're not really middle class. You're making middle class money, but you're not earning enough earned income. I mean, after taxes, to sustain you. Right. So there's so many circumstances that come into play, but most middle class families are those who are above, the 80, 70, 80,000, right, threshold. Those type with maybe 2 to 4 people in the household. I would say that's probably 2 to 3. That's probably middle class, right? So those families need alternatives. Those students need alternatives, alternate forms of financial aid, not just what comes as a result of the FAFSA. You need institutional aid. You need merit-based aid. There are some students who are honor students. They're at the top. They're in the middle, top 50% of their class. They're doing well. If you're in the top 10 to 20% of your class, you probably earned the right to go to school for free. But you gotta, what comes into play there, and your middle class, meaning that you're not eligible for most of what's going to come as a result of the FAFSA. You then what you have to do is find the right school.
Right.
You got to match yourself up with the right institution to attend that's going to be supportive of you financially and academically. And so where you decide to go is just as important as to what you decide to fill out in order to get revenue. Because there are some schools that pay more than others. There's some schools that have more institutional aid. They have more merit-based aid. They have aid for African-American females. They have aid for people who are left-handed. They have aid for people who have, are majoring in a certain major.
More opportunities.
Yeah, more opportunities and more money.
Right.
And so we need to try to match you up with that school. It's not just the FAFSA. That's only 20%, 50% of the game, right? So we've got to find this other 50%. And sometimes it's where you attend, where you decide to go. Yeah. I love, you went to DePaul. I love DePaul. But DePaul does not offer enough merit-based aid and academic aid and institutional aid to support a lot of the students who attend there.
It's like you said, did I graduate from DePaul because of DePaul, or did I graduate in spite of DePaul? And I think it's because we as a family had to do a lot of that work.
Yeah.
Not necessarily because DePaul was like, hey, we're going to help you graduate.
Yeah, DePaul's like every other institution out here, right? I'm not trying to trash them. They're great institutions.
They are. It's like you always tell us, like, were you successful because of this institution or in spite of this institution? And I think DePaul is a great school, but I think we were successful because of what we could do as a family, and everybody can't do what we could have done as a family. So, it's not an institution for everybody.
Right. Yeah, I mean, DePaul's like a lot of the majority of the institutions out here. I mean, they want as many students as they can possibly get.
Right.
They're gonna take care of probably the top 5 to 10%. They're gonna get they can't pay everyone's tuition, right? So a lot of families, especially middle income families, when we say middle income, that we truly mean that you're in the middle.
Yeah.
You don't qualify for free aid, and in many cases, depending on your academic scores, you may not qualify for institutional aid. Right. So you're going to have to really come up with strategies for yourself in order to pay for this education, and so a lot of times it's trying to find that school that is willing to say, I'm going to take a chance on you. I'm going to be supportive of you. And I have a special program for you based on your major. If you're a black male, and you want to major in education, you want to be a teacher, there are certain schools that say, come here tuition free.
Yeah.
Right? So we need to find those schools, and we need to give you that opportunity. If you are a Hispanic or a woman of color. There are certain schools that say, listen, major in our female studies program, and we will take care of you financially. So we have to find those schools, and we have to connect students with those types of institutions.
Yeah, love it. So after we've gotten our student aid report back, we have went through the verification process. If need be, most likely we will have to go through a verification process. I'm sitting here, and my financial aid award letter is here.
Yeah.
Now what do I do?
Read it very carefully. You don't have to be a lawyer to read it, but you need to really understand what it's saying.
Right.
Yeah. There are certain types of, first I would check to see what did they offer me? What kind of financial aid are they offering me? In most cases, they're going to offer you some student loans. You need to see, are those loans subsidized or are they unsubsidized?
Yes.
Right? If they're subsidized, that means the interest is subsidized. The loan is subsidized, and you won't accrue more interest while you're in school. That interest is going to be deferred until you graduate or until 6 months after you leave the school. Are they offering parent loans or are they offering student loans? All that kind of thing. Yeah. The parents have to understand that if it's a parent loan, they're responsible for paying it back. If it's a student loan, the student is responsible for paying it back. That's really big because a lot of parents say, I don't care. I want my baby to go to this school. I'm going to take out whatever I got to take. And so for the first year, they take out that parent loan for 10, 15, 20,000. And it's cool because, my baby's going to the institution of her choice and her wish institution. But then can you do it again? And can you do it again? And can you do it again? Are you willing to do it again? That's a question that I ask a lot of parents. How far are you willing to go to pay for your child's education?
One thing I love that you I think you still do it in your presentations is like you'll have a picture of a Bugatti and a Rolls Royce, and it's just like, who in here can buy this?
Right.
Or even finance this.
Right.
And it's like you really have to look at this. You're looking at 120, 145, 200, sometimes $300,000 worth of debt. And it's like, is this degree your child or you're about to get, is it worth this? I'm not saying it's not. Sitting here, I'm not saying it's never worth it, because if you're going to become a medical doctor, hey, you have to really decide, is it worth it? Based off of what you'll make in your career.
And are you willing to accrue that much debt?
That amount of debt.
For this career path.
Right.
So it's a good question to ask. I mean, and then so we take a close look at that financial aid award letter. You have to read the fine print, because sometimes they'll say, we need an answer for you for this particular award within the next 30 days. I've had students to actually lose out on money that they were eligible to receive because they didn't respond to the financial aid award letter in a timely manner.
Wow.
And so, it's again, it's so much bigger than just that one application. And so we want to look at all those things, look at the type of aid that they're giving you. And it adds on there the cost of attending. Like the cost of attending, as I said, the U of I may be $40,000 to $45,000. It may be higher. I'm not sure. But the amount of aid that they're giving you on your award letter may be $30,000. So they're telling you unmet need. There's something called unmet need that they're going to show on that award letter. You need to see what that is, because that unmet need is something that you're going to have to meet out of pocket, meaning after the loans. You still got to borrow the loans. Right? After Pell, after SEOG, all these other forms of aid, your out-of-pocket expense is still $15,000. So this is where people really begin to get into trouble, because students will then start taking out private loans, or parents don't have the $15,000 to pay.
So you got to come home.
Yeah, and then payday loans, that's a whole nother workshop for a whole nother day. But,
let's just say this right now. Please, please, please stay away from the payday loans. Please.
Right.
I don't care how bad you want to go to any institution.
It's not worth it.
It is not worth taking your behind in that payday loan spot.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing good that's going to happen from taking a loan out from a place like that. And that's another podcast.
It is. But I really encourage students to try to avoid as much debt as you possibly can in your first 2 years of study. If you can do that, then chances are you're going to increase your chances of graduating and staying in school exponentially. Absolutely. At least by 50% by just avoiding that the first 2 years. I really would like for you to avoid it all 4 years and save the borrowing for graduate school. Because one of the things that students don't realize is that when you get to the graduate school level, you're not eligible for a Pell Grant anymore.
Really?
You're not eligible for federal aid anymore. You're eligible for loans, but you're not eligible for a Pell Grant.
So when a student who's in their master's program, we still encourage them to fill out the FAFSA, but there's a chance that, well, it's pretty much likely that they won't receive any
Pell Grant,
yeah,
SELG, college work study, none of that.
Any grant. So that's really when you're more relying on fellowships, teaching positions, things like that.
Graduate assistantships, things like that. Yeah.
Okay. Great. That was the point I was going to make. Just like we encourage people to fill out the FAFSA with professional help, I would encourage people to seek professional help to really understand your financial aid award letter and your next steps once you've to keep in touch throughout the entire financial aid process.
That's a really good point. Good point. We at Fafsa, we work with students all the way up until the point of enrollment, actually, where you actually leave to go to the school. We're still talking to you. We're still counseling you. We're still sharing information with you. And I encourage students to continue to apply for scholarships from now all the way up until August. You should still be filling out applications for scholarships.
Because that unmet need is something,
serious.
Serious. And, if there's obviously, I personally feel people should compare the schools and go with the best option. But the best option might not be the school that you dreamed of going to. So you have to understand that, okay, you can go to your dream school, but that unmet need on a year one, chances are you'll find the unmet need. But it gets harder and harder to find money for school as you progress into college.
Yeah. You really want to ask yourself the question, how do I want to end 4 years from now?
Yeah.
And I say 4 because some students take 5, 6, 7, 8 years to complete a 4-year college degree program of study. That's the first thing you should really do. Make sure that you have a plan to complete this study, a program of study within 4 years or less.
15 courses, 15 credits or more.
Yeah, 15 is the new full-time.
You should not be taking 12 credits anymore.
15 is the new full-time. If you take 15 credit hours per semester all the way up to graduation and you pass, and you stay enrolled in those courses, you don't withdraw, chances are you will finish in 4 years or less. But ask yourself the question, how do you want to end? Do you want to graduate with a lot of debt? Do you want to graduate with minimal debt? Or would you like to graduate with no debt at all? And your answer will determine what kind of plan you will implement in your course of study.
Absolutely. So what would you say to and I guess this is kind of going into Q&A. But what I guess I wanted, thinking in the student mind, right, to a high school senior, what would you say to a person who's like, this is my school, they are, they have the major I want, they're ranked, they have a record of success of putting out successful people in this major, but my unmet need is, let's say $15,000, but this school where they're going to meet all of my need, they're not as known in my major. What should I do?
I would go with the school that is going with me.
Yeah.
You can go to a great name school, but if that great name school does not have a financial commitment to you, they haven't committed resources, they haven't, they've done some great things for some great people, but what are they doing for you? What are they offering you? I always tell students to tell institutions, I'm going to become a distinguished alumni of this institution. and I need your support in order to do that, right? And see what their response is. Do they give you the money? Do they try to help you? Or do they say, go back home and talk to your mother and father? And if they say, go back home and talk to your mother and father, well, then I would go back home. I would pack my bags and go back home and find another institution. Because what that school is saying to you is that we can't help you, right? And so there is enough money out here. There are enough institutions out here that can help you. But you've got to take the time and exercise be diligent in your search and in your reading of information to find the school that best fits you. Right.
I think too, sometimes we put so much emphasis on a college that we lose track of, like we said, skill set. You can graduate from Northwestern, but do you have a skill set that's transferable to the field,
workforce?
Workforce. So I've seen that, where you go to a highly selective institution and it's still kind of hard to land a position.
Or four-year public institution. It's anywhere. You have to ask yourself, what are they going to teach me? What are they going to give me? What amount of practical experience are they going to give me that's going to help me to land a job after I finish? What's their employment rate?
Yeah.
What's the average earning rate? You go to the college scorecard.
Yeah, we actually played that clip on our College Match podcast that you talked about.
Yeah, if you go there, it'll tell you what the earnings are for people who graduate, the average student who graduates from this institution, and it will give you a sense of what majors actually pay the most. Yeah. So those are good questions, good things to look at.
Absolutely. Before we go to Q&A, Dee, did you have anything to add?
Yeah. So I like that you brought up the story about how your girlfriend,
ex-girlfriend,
right? Emphasize ex.
Just the clarification for me.
I really like how you brought that story up and how she was able to build that relationship, but also use that as an opportunity to probably request more money on her financial aid, correct? So are there any other ways that students can actually request to have more money if they're not happy with
unconventional ways?
Yes. Well, when you get the award letter, look at the types of aid that they're offering you. They may say you have a maximum amount of need for a maximum amount of financial aid. Well, students have to understand that loans are considered as financial aid. Right? So they may offer you a loan instead of a grant. And so this is where you can go back and you can say, I want to decline the loan and I'd like to be considered for a federal supplemental educational opportunity grant, right? There are some students that are being offered that grant that won't attend that institution. They won't actually enroll. They won't actually sit. So what happens to the money that was offered? It's still there. So it needs to be offered to somebody else. So just because they offer it to you doesn't mean that you have to accept it. So you can decline loan aid and you can ask for grant aid, right?
So basically nothing is final until you say so.
Right, until you say so or they say so. Right. So it's just really knowing what to ask and knowing who to ask for it. That's why I say a relationship is so important because that financial aid, if they know you, they know your name. And this is not something I would ask for over the telephone. I mean, I'd put my suit jacket on, a little tie, and I'd go up there to the office because it's harder for people to say no to you to your face than it is to say over the phone or through a letter, right? Right. And so, that's the importance of relationship is so vital.
What about if you're, if you're thinking about a college that's kind of far away from where you live?
If you can go visit, then visit. I still say the same. But now we're in a media age. You can do a Zoom meeting. You can ask for a Zoom meeting. You can FaceTime. Other things like that. Use whatever tool you can use
to get in their face.
right? And and listen, it's not just the director of financial aid who has money. You need to ask this other question: who else at the institution has money and can award money or has the power to make money decisions. It's the president, it's the board of trustees,
Sometimes the
provost. It's the dean of certain colleges.
Right.
I was a vocal major, when I first went to school. So I auditioned for another form of aid is a tuition waiver, where they simply waive your tuition. Mm-hmm. We're talking about $15,000, $16,000 in some cases, where it's just waived, right? So I found that out through the dean of the College of Music, right? And so I auditioned for a scholarship, a tuition waiver, and they waived my tuition. So that's just it was the equivalent of receiving a scholarship. Mm-hmm. And so, who has the power to waive tuition?
And what colleges are doing that?
And what universities? They all do it. They all have that authority and they all have that power. It's just that we don't know to ask that question. Right? Better questions lead to better answers. And so knowing what questions to ask is so paramount and so crucial. It's another one of those unconventional things that you can do to actually receive more aid.
Awesome.
That's it? Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to go into some quick Q&A. Some of our students asked these questions, just different polls I sent out. Mm-hmm. And some of these are just online where I just want your opinion on. The first one says, besides federal grants and loans, where can I go to find more college financial aid?
It's really important that the students make up their minds where they want to attend. Really take a close look at the institution that you're trying to enroll in. Some institutions have money and some institutions are broke.
Absolutely.
Okay. And if they're broke.
And I think back to Howard, some institutions have money, but they're just not putting it towards students.
Yeah.
They're putting it towards development or salaries but it's not going
Special
towards
initiatives.
Yeah, but it's not going towards students.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you can see which institutions are actually supporting students by looking at the graduation rate. Take a look at the graduation rate. Take a look at the retention rate for your particular ethnic group.
Yeah. Not
just everybody. Ask the question, what percentage of your African-American males are you retaining on an annual basis?
Absolutely.
And that will give you information and let you know what's happening, at that institution. It's sometimes I'm about to say something. Buckle up. I always say this when I'm talking to people. I'm about to give some really good information. Buckle up. Sometimes it's not where you go, but it's what you major in.
Absolutely.
Right? It's not where you go, but what you major in. Again, there are certain scholarships, certain forms of aid that are set aside for students who major in a certain major. And like right now, there's a shortage of nurses. There's a shortage of healthcare professionals. A lot of people are not going into medicine now. There's shortage of technology. Artificial intelligence is something that's really, really big. Cyber technology, cyber majors are learning how to code and different things like that. These are careers that are in really big demand, and the Department of Defense is offering scholarships. They're offering college support to students who go into these types of fields. Universities obtain millions of dollars in federal contracts to conduct research in certain areas, such as viral. I forgot what you call these doctors who study, like Dr. Fauci. I forgot what he's called. His position is called.
I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. Yeah, starts with a V.
Yeah, but I mean, sometimes the defense, the Department of Defense has engaged in biological warfare, and so they need people to go in to understand viruses, to understand how all of this stuff works, so that they can, use it to defend the country, to protect the country.
Virologist.
And all that. So it's what you major in that can determine. They're willing to pay you to go and learn and study and research in these different areas. I said one time, the University of Chicago received an award one time from alumnus who paid $15 million just to study the wonders of the stars. So they take that $15 million and they pass it down to students who are majoring in astrology, astronomy, different things like that. Okay.
Love it.
Yeah.
Other question says, let me pull it up. Other question says, besides tuition and fees, room and board, what else should I include in my budget for the school year, and how can I make sure I stay on track to pay for those things?
Transportation, books, telephone, supplies, other things. Transportation is a big one. If you live in Chicago and you go to Syracuse University, which is in upstate New York, that's some big travel costs.
I think there are a lot of people who receive full ride or full amount of aid, and they think they can rest. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, no, like you still need to be looking for aid to support that stuff.
Yeah, all that. And sometimes your major requires other supplies that you purchase. You got to have a good laptop computer, and you got to have maybe some science supplies depending on what you major in. So all these things are important.
And how do you think, where can people go to find support and financial support for those things outside of room and board? And
okay. Your personal image is so important. And I think this is something that young people really have a problem with, and many of them are crashing and burning in this area. Because you can go to other fundraising spots, like a lot of people have established GoFundMe campaigns, right? Yeah. And there's students that I know of who have asked me to help fund their tuition for a semester through a GoFundMe account. But I look at their social media page and I look at their image, and they're using profanity, they're right. Smoking drugs online, they're their image is not a positive image. If you want people to invest in you, then you have to give them something to invest in. Because there are a lot of people who can help you pay for your college education, who are willing. There are churches, there are community-based organizations, there are clubs like the Kiwanis Club and others who will help pay. But what they're paying into is your name and your image. And if you don't have a good name, see, you want to be you, but at the same time, you want help with you. Right. And sometimes the two don't match up. You have to give something. You have to give people something to invest in. And I've seen students that just mess up. They go to college. They have scholarships from organizations. They get into fights. They get kicked out of school. They get placed on probation, and their scholarship ends. Right? Your scholarship ended because your image changed. Right. It's not a positive. It's no longer a positive image that people are willing to invest in. Mm-hmm. I'll invest in you if you give me something worthwhile to invest in. Other people will as well. We give out through Fafsa. We've given out over $100,000 in scholarship aid, since 2014, in investing in young people. But again, I asked to see, how are you doing? How are your grades? It's not a one-time deal. That's the piece. Relationships are meant to last. Solid relationships are those that are meant to last over time
and maintain.
The same people that are investing in you to pay for your college education will continue to invest in you in the areas of employment and employment opportunities and housing and childcare and other things that will come up later on in life. These are lifelong relationships that you should build. I've known people who have had opportunities and they've been in contact with presidents and the wives of presidents and other political leaders who blew those relationships, didn't keep in touch, didn't share their grades, didn't share their progress, didn't share how they were doing. Remember, this financial aid process, it works. The more information you share, the more likelihood you're going to receive more help. And the same thing applies and when I say financial aid process, I mean that unmet need. getting that unmet need met can be met if you have the right relationships. There are people who will pay for you to travel all across the world.
That's facts.
For free if they just believe in you. But you've got to give them something to believe in. Yeah. So if you're going to, if you're going to create a separate image where you just mark your whole face up and paint, kill them underneath your eyeballs and all that kind of stuff. I'm serious, and teardrops and all that. Yeah. Then you have to realize that that's going to cost you something. And you may be popular in a social media setting, but you're going to be unpopular in that setting with those who have revenue and income who could support you. Mm-hmm. They're not going to do that.
Great point. Point. Dee, do we have any other Q&A questions?
No, I actually just went through a lot of them, and we answered them the last couple of episodes.
Awesome. I am going to include an article for our students. Fastweb.com put out an amazing article on 15 financial aid questions you need to be asking the college, ranging from what types of financial aid do you offer, what are the requirements, just everything we've talked about, but on paper. These are questions you need to be going in, whether it's virtual or in person. Once you've gotten into a college, these are the questions you need to be asking the financial aid department. Mm-hmm. Even things like, does your college practice need blind admissions? Or will applying for financial aid hurt my chances of being admitted? Do you consider financial need when deciding whether to accept students off the waiting list?
Yeah, that's a big one.
Amazing
that's a big one because some institutions, they don't want to have to pay for you to be there. Mm-hmm. So they try to find, some institutions, not all, but some institutions try to find families, or let's say minority families who are not poor.
Right.
And they're more likely to accept that student because that student won't have such a high financial need for financial assistance. And so they could say, yeah, we got minority students here, but they're there in spite of you, not because of you.
Absolutely. So I'm going to make sure that article is in the comments. Please check that out.
Yeah.
And so you can just be more aware of what to ask when you are meeting with these financial people who are making decisions about your financial needs. So with that, Doc, do you have anything else?
No, I would just say, hey, be very diligent. It's, the FAFSA is not the first step. It's one step in several steps that you need to take in order to end well with a package that's pleasing and helpful to your family. And again, as we always said, seek professional help to get with this process. But then make those professionals really work.
Right.
And we make them work by asking them good questions, by standing their faces. I always like to say the squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Absolutely.
If you're not making any noise, no one knows that you need oil. Yep.
Closed mouths don't get fed.
That is.
The early bird gets the worm.
Okay. You have not because you asked not.
Yeah. So just to recap, if you have filled out your FAFSA, the next thing you need to be doing is looking for your student aid report that contains the information that you filled out on the FAFSA, it will include your EFC score. From there, we need to see if you'll be selected for verification or not. And if you are, you have to verify with the college that the information that you put on your FAFSA is true. Mm-hmm. And once that information is verified, we'll have a financial aid award letter. And from there, the process is still ongoing because we have to look at the financial aid award letters from the individual colleges you applied for.
Chew the meat and spit out the bones.
Yeah.
Accept the good stuff and reject the bad stuff.
So much more podcasts to come on these things. We're not going to leave you guys out to dry. This is, like Doc has been saying, this is a process that is ongoing. And along with the one-on-one help that we provide, this is our platform to address the problems that people can run up against. But with that being said, this has been another episode of College Declassified. Be sure to
go to www.familycenter.org and go to the academic coach button.
Yes.
Click on the academic coach button and start looking under. We have all kinds of information there on scholarships, on the financial aid process and all these other things. And so click on that, click on the links that are attached to it, watch the videos, become a student of this process, and you'll do well.
Love it. You can also follow us on social media at Fafsa Trio, pretty much on everything. That is our tag. Like I said, if you need professional help with your FAFSA or anything, you can go to calendly.com/Fafsa.
And don't be afraid to ask any questions. Reach out to us. We'll be happy to assist in any way we can.
Yeah. I just want to make a quick announcement. We were awarded a new Educational Opportunity Centers grant that is going to be opening up in Inglewood. And this grant is designed to assist adults who want to go back to school, those who didn't get to earn a high school diploma. We can help you get into a GED program and then help you after that program to enroll into a college or university of your choice. If you want to get retrained and get a new certificate and start a new career as an adult, that program will help. We're going to be helping 750 adults per year in the Inglewood community with this grant program. So more information is to come. Keep posted on our Facebook site. You'll see more announcements about it.
Love it. Love it. So until next week, that is College Declassified.
Peace.
See ya. See ya.